Just thought I'd show you how this works real quick, just give you a short explanation of how it works. So I'm about to put some green beans on the trays, but what you do first is you need to chill the chamber. It takes about 15 minutes. So you tap start and that's all you do. And it says cooling vacuum chamber, wait 15 minutes before loading trays. We had ordered the freeze dryer. We didn't have it yet. So part of the process for freeze drying, right, is that the freeze dryer freezes your food. And so a very common thing is to take your food, put it in the trays, and freeze it in your freezer before you put it in there, and to kind of jump start the whole process. So what we did is we took some cookie sheets and laid out the beans that we had harvested from the garden. We had washed them and snapped them, of course. We just laid them out flat on the cookie sheets so they froze. And then at that point, we didn't know when our freeze dryer was coming. And all we did was vacuum seal them and then put them back in the freezer. So in general, these are loose. Sometimes I need to take, this is just a little small handheld dead blow hammer. You could use a rubber mallet or a dead blow hammer to bust it up a little bit, but they break loose because when we froze them, they were spread out and not touching each other. So all we do is take our beans, put the beans in here, put them in the pan, spread it out. We want to have just one layer. In general, it'll work better. Some of these are a little froze together. You want them relatively flat in one layer because then if you don't have them packed on top of each other too much. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're going to do. We're going to fill up all those trays with beans. About that time, the freeze dryer will have pre-cooled, and then we'll put them in there. Some people will weigh their trays, as they are, and then take a weight after they freeze dried them, so then they know how much water it takes to rehydrate the food. Now that's probably more important with certain types of food like eggs and things like that, but with beans really you can just put them in the hot water and it's only going to absorb, when you rehydrate it, it'll only absorb the amount of water it needs. The same would be for meat. So you can see what it says, load fruit in the freeze dryer, close the drain valve. Drain valve is on the other side. It says do not mix frozen with non-frozen food, and that's because you'll get inconsistent results. So again, just open this up and we've got all of our trays of beans that we loaded up, and all we do is slide them in here, off it to it. We're going to close the door, take a look, make sure we have a nice black ring here hitting the door, a nice good seal. I will double check the drain valve in the back and hit continue. I think my finger's a little cold. There we go, I heard a click, beep, and now it says freezing. It's going to freeze it, put a vacuum on, the vacuum pump will kick on and remove the air out of there so it's under vacuum, and then those heating pads on the bottom are going to heat up to about 125 degrees or so, and then the frozen water, right, will then from the heat turn into, because it's under vacuum, go immediately to a gas and condense on that freezing chamber, and that's how the water gets removed. It skips the liquid state because it's under vacuum. Alright, so I'll let it do its thing. Okay, there we are at about 3 hours and I guess 40 minutes, and take off 15 minutes, of course. Temperature is negative 19 degrees. And so at this point the vacuum pump is kicked on. Probably hear it. There it is. Almost at 5 hours of running now. You can see it's running there at 504 MT, that's millitors, and the temperature is 21 degrees. And you'll also notice that big, all caps, drying staring you in the face there. So it's been drying for 40 minutes. Let's take a look inside here. If I can get this, there we go. You can see the ice more ice starting to form there. So what's happening is they cool it down to -40, and then let's see here, going this side, you can see a little more of the ice forming there. And then the trays, heat elements under the trays here, well, you can see those heating pads. Those are heating up each of the trays, and right now those trays are at 25 degrees, but eventually they'll get up above freezing. So let me show you how the seal works when the vacuum is running. You see how that, I don't know if it showed up in the other picture, the other video we had, but the line was really thin. Once the vacuum pump kicks on, it gets really wide. Maybe 3/8 of an inch. You can see that. Let's see if I can keep the right angle with the light. And that's how that works. And there is a really good seal there. So here we are at almost 19 hours. You can see we've got about a little over 14.5 hours of drying that has occurred. And the temperature, I think, is the highest that's been since I've been here, about 128. But let's take a look at inside here. Take a look at the, see if I can do this in a different light. Here's our beans. You can see the change in the color. When they're rehydrated, however, that color will be just like they came right out of the garden. Now let's see if I can get a shot in there at the ice. Not too much glare. It's starting to hit the trays a little bit. Now, process complete. It's like it was about 25 hours. Well, the next step we're going to do here is open the door and just make sure everything's dry. If it is, then we'll pack it up. If it's not, you can see in the middle there it says more dry time, and then we would just tap on that and then maybe add 2 or 4 hours of dry time. Alright, let's open it up. Boom, we are free. They sure seem dry. I think they're ready to pack up. I think we better pack these up before I eat all of them. I've got a couple of trays here of beans that I took out of the freeze dryer. And by the way, if you're not ready to take the food product out, the machine, even though it's prompting and saying it's complete, it switches over to freezing. So it'll go back into that mode and it'll just kind of be there. So your food isn't going to go bad. It's still in a vacuum. And it gives you that option of still adding more time if you want to. But ours are ready. So here's what we do, is what we found it works really well. We take a bag, take the beans in this case, and put them in the bag. We're going to take one of our handy dandy Mylar bags, and we're going to pour them in there. Next thing we need to do is get an oxygen absorber in there so that we don't have any oxygen in there to run the risk of the food going bad. So I've got some here that I just taken some out of the pack. There's like 10 in a pack here, and I resealed it. Now these you have to be really careful with, because these will start to absorb oxygen and get warm and go bad. So we're just going to put those oxygen absorber in there. Then shake it down. Interesting thing here. This could actually take a little bit more. So we're going to put a little more in there. Trays are a little bit lighter this time than the time we did the last time. And we're going to pour some more in there so we can make good use of the bag. Well, that got a little bit full, more full than I'd like it to be. Now what we do, something that you shouldn't have to do if you have this. This is the sealer. Our sealer, I've actually sent a request to customer support. Our sealer's not working properly. When I go like this, put it on the proper setting, and try to seal it, it won't seal. So what I'm about to do right now, I'm going to turn it so you can see there's a little light here. Hopefully you can see that. When I activate it about 5, what I found in the meantime is that I can activate it about 5 times, and it sort of heats up the element. And I lost track of where it was. And then if I move quickly and get it in there, it will seal it. After the light goes out, you wait just a little bit to kind of make sure that it seals it up. Now I'm going to check it because we're having problems with the sealer. Just to make sure. Okay, it is working. Okay, so if all I do is do it the way you're supposed to be able to do it, just put it in there and just seal it, I'm able to just push my hand right through it. There's no problem. Now this is something unique, and I'm confident, or at least I'd like to believe that Harvest Right's going to, you know, help us make this right. So, but what I will do again, because they recommend 2 seals minimum, I'm going to get this going again. That's all there is to it. But for now, we've got to get these beans packed up because we don't want them to absorb any moisture. So we're going to get that packed up, and then we'll show you how we do the defrosting. So we've packaged all our beans up in the Mylar bags. We're good to go. One of the things, I don't know if you can see this, maybe you need to come a little closer here. Don't be shy. So can you see the screen there? So what we're going to do is we have the options of warm trays. Well, we don't need to warm the trays. That's an option that you can use if you weren't able to take the trays out when it was done, because what it does is it switches over to freezing, and you'll end up with like a -40, and those trays are awfully cold at that point, as you might imagine. So you can do warm trays. The other options that we have here are no defrost, more dry time. Well, we've determined that our beans were dry, so we don't need more dry time, and of course we've already packed them up. Or defrost. Now if you do defrost, what that does is it heats up the heating pads on the shelf, or the rack if you will, and it helps defrost the unit. However, we use no defrost because it saves energy and costs less money. So we're going to do no defrost, and you just heard the unit shut down. And you can see all the ice that's formed on the cooling chamber. And we'll come up over the top here and on the side. All that ice right there, okay? So what we do, and I learned this from Phil at 4,800 feet. I take this off like that, and I go like this here. Okay? What that's going to do is blow air in there, and you probably can't hear it, but the ice is starting to crack. And what that'll do is melt that ice just by pushing that air in there. Now this is in our garage, and right now our temperature is probably somewhere in the 50s, mid 50s, but that'll certainly melt that. And we've got our vacuum valve on the side opened, and that's going into a bucket. I'm just going to take this fan off here. Enough of the ice is melted in there where we can pull it out. We don't have to wait for all the drip and melt and go out the vent in the back there. So we'll pull this out here. So here we go. First we just kind of move it a little bit, make sure it's free. Move it a little. And I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to be a little bit careful to make sure that the ice isn't still stuck on the side. I can see it's not. It's really hard for you to see from where you're at. But the big thing is if it's stuck on the side and then the wires in the back are in that ice, then it's a problem. But it's all loose right now. So here we go. Let's see how much I can get in the bin. There's a bin right down here. Here we go. So it worked. Take the plug out there. But you see how fast that came out. And now we don't have to wait for that to totally melt. And basically it's still cold. So I'm going to wipe this out, go load up some more trays, and restart it. And so it'll take less energy because it won't need to do as much cooling on the pre-cool. I think at the beginning I mentioned as some friends were asking about it, and this really wasn't meant to be a tutorial. It was just meant to be a way to show people what this freeze dryer thing is all about. All I have to say is make it happen. I'm about to go put some beans on the trays, green beans on the trays. But okay, so we took some cookie sheets, pans, cookie sheet pans. Bleh. What are they called?
Cookie sheets. Cookie sheets.
Okay,